When it comes to choosing a font type, you need to consider style, size, and spacing. This tutorial will explore each of these elements and recommend fonts to use when building your course in Blackboard. Standard font types come in two basic styles, serif and sans serif. Serifs are the small decorative strokes at the end of a letter's main strokes. Times New Roman is a classic example of a serif font type. Sans serif font types are literally those without serifs. Sans means without in French. Arial is a classic example of a sans serif font type. For online materials, sans serif fonts are generally considered easier to read than serif fonts. Serif fonts are generally considered easier to read in printed materials. Make sure your font is a comfortable size for your students to read. Different fonts in the same size can appear to be smaller or larger. Consider the example on screen. The top line is Century Gothic and the bottom line is Garamond. Both were formatted using the same size, but you can see how the differences in typeface impact the perceived size. If you use a font like Garamond, consider increasing the font size so it is more comfortable to read. Spacing refers to the amount of white space between each letter. Some font types contain more white space than others. Those with either too much or too little white space can be tiring to read. In this example, the top font is Verdana and the bottom font is Georgia. While it may appear at first that Verdana would be more tiring to read given its irregular spacing, it is actually easier to read because it accounts for the way your brain perceives the space around each letter. For example, there is less space between P and A because these are fairly open letters, while more space is present around a narrow letter, like I. Not all of the font type choices available in Blackboard are appropriate for use. Arial, Century Gothic, Tahoma, and Verdana are all easy to read, sans serif font types recommended by OLI for use in Blackboard courses. Arial is an easy choice given that it is the Blackboard default and requires no additional formatting. Century Gothic tends to be slightly larger than other font types. Tahoma and Verdana are both clean font types with nice spacing. Boca Antiqua, Garamond, Georgia, and Times New Roman are all fairly standard-looking serif font types. While nice choices, you may want to consider using a sans serif font type instead. If you choose to use Garamond, consider increasing the font size as it appears smaller than most other font types. If considering Georgia, note that its spacing is a little tighter than most of the other font types available in Blackboard, which may make it less comfortable to read over an extended period. Arial Black, Comic Sans, and Courier New are all inappropriate selections for your course. Arial Black is a bold version of Arial that is uncomfortable to read for extended periods of time. Comic Sans was overused in the 90s and as such now seems dated and unprofessional. Courier New is also somewhat dated and should be used only for stylistic purposes and headers, not the text of an entire course.